Boom, we're live.
Number one, baby.
Number one.
First individual on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for doing this.
Turn this down.
So this is a story that that we want to tell.
Yeah.
This is a story that I hope you want to tell.
Absolutely.
And this is a story that I think most individuals in this country would be able to resonate with, right?
Yeah.
So take me back to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma,
born and raised.
Yeah. So first off, I have to tell a quick story.
Fire.
First time I ever did a public speaking event, I did it out of a complete wrong reason. I went to a college to speak to all these freshmen. I was 21, and I was like, God, there's going to be some hot girls there. And I started speaking, and I just bombed.
Ooh, no good.
Every other word was a cuss word.
Yeah.
The professor, her eyes were like big and wide, like freaked out. It was probably like the funniest story that I can actually look back on. Yeah. Because it was just such an uncomfortable telling my story. I was like, oh, I'm going to look so hard. I'm going to be this. Yeah. So a little preface that with my first speaking engagement, if you will.
Okay. So that was your first time ever
First time ever. I was 6 months sober.
Yeah.
My buddy was running it, and he's like, do you want to go speak? I'm like, yeah, there's going to be some college girls there. Okay. I'll do it. And then I got there and I panicked. That's hilarious.
So take me back. Take me back to growing up in Oklahoma, what that was like for you. Mom, dad, family, makeup, the works.
Yeah. So I grew up in Oklahoma, obviously. I have an older brother, and my two parents. Like, I was born into like really a very good dynamic in a sense. Like,
would you say privileged?
Privileged, 100%. And so like being an addict was never something that was really expected of me. It was like, that's just not going to happen to our kids. And my brother and I both are addicts now, or we're both in recovery, luckily, but. It was not
brother older or younger.
My brother is older. He's 8 years older. So
gotcha.
We almost like grew up in two different houses because there's such a huge age gap.
Yeah.
So very privileged family. Went to private school. Everything that we wanted, we had. Like the concept of money wasn't a thing. As time went on, things like for me, like really, I was an addict as a 3-year-old.
Really?
Food. Like, my dad's favorite story is, we got all this ice cream. We got a gallon of ice cream. My dad got us 2 pints. My brother got a pint. I got a pint. My brother comes home. I'm 3 years old. I'm eating a pint of ice cream, about to finish it. My brother's like, I'm going to go get my pint of ice cream. And I was like, I ate that. And he goes, oh. He's like, I'm going to go get the gallon of ice cream. And I was like, I ate that too.
You took it down.
Took it down. So like everything I did, even like looking back, was very addictive behavior for me, at least. Everything I did it to the extreme. Like,
so give me something else before the use.
Yeah.
Like give me something else that was addictive behavior prior to use history. Yeah.
So I was like very like in a sense kind of an obsessive kid. So like everything I did, like sports, I did it to the extreme.
Got it.
Like football was like my life. Everything I did with football, honestly, like I took football very seriously, like in like third grade. In third grade, you couldn't run the ball if you're a certain weight. Yeah. So I like focused on losing weight in third grade to make sure I could run the ball, and I did it. So everything, like sports, video games, when I was younger, everything like to the extreme. Full blast, no stopping me. Yeah. But still, I didn't think I never thought I'd become an addict. So the first time that for me at least, it all started with drinking. Yeah. I started drinking when I was 10. 10 years old.
Was it looking? Did it have anything to do with your brother and his environment, what he was doing?
Yeah. So my brother, he was just full blown addict, everything. Like I could tell by the time he was like 16, 17. So he was a little more like the wild child. Our parents were very strict, but at the same time they gave us a lot of freedom.
So looking back at the Logan 8, 9, 10-year-old.
Yeah.
you knew something was invariably different about your brother.
Yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was very popular, but he partied a lot. I remember actually my brother, when he was 16, he actually got alcohol poisoning.
Really?
So the ambulance had to come to our house to get him from a party. Our parents weren't there. The only reason they pumped his stomach, because as a minor, they had to get parental, get it signed off by a parent. The doctor just so happened to be someone that went to school with my dad.
Wow.
High school. And she's like, I know his dad. We're doing this.
Mm.
Otherwise, he could have died if they didn't pump his stomach. So yeah, that was the environment I grew up in. It was very, I had great.
So just real quick then.
Yeah.
That happened at 16.
For my brother, yeah.
Yep. Okay. And the reaction from mom and dad is what?
Concerned, but not enough to actually be really concerned.
Got it.
So, I grew up in so that environment for me as a young kid was actually kind of hectic. I had a brother who was drinking, smoking weed, doing pills, all this stuff like in our house. And our parents were strict, but they weren't strict at the same time. They were like, they had very, like, they'd just be really disappointed.
Yeah.
Like really judgment, but not really like, don't do this again.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a very kind of hectic environment to grow up in at the same time. Like my dad and my brother, they fought a lot. When I was 10, my parents got separated. My dad moved like an hour and a half away. So like there's this like huge kind of divide in my family. So for me, I started drinking at 10, started smoking weed, doing all those things. I was 13 when I started smoking weed. It just got worse and worse for me. It started gradually building up. When I was a freshman in high school, I messed up my knee playing football. And I remember I was going to have surgery, and I remember I was excited to get pain pills.
You were excited.
I was excited.
Yeah.
Like they told me I was going to have surgery. I'm like, yes, this is the answer. Yeah. I'd never taken any pills before. None of that. I just knew for some reason that was the answer.
Tore up ACL, MCL, something like that, PCL?
I tore my meniscus, and everything in my right knee is completely stretched.
Got it.
From this injury, and it hurt really bad. But I was just really excited about the pain pills. So my mom, because my brother, she tried to hide the pain pills, but I found them. And I was like, this is the answer. Wow. So I started taking those. And once I ran out of those, I actually had a friend whose mom had recently had back surgery, and she was allergic to different pain pills. Yeah. So I bought those from my buddy. I was like, hey, I'll give you.
Oxy, Tramadol, what were you
Oxycodone was
Oxycodone, okay.
So that was the first time I had Oxycodone, was whenever I got it from her.
Okay.
So yeah, I told them, I was like, I'll give you $5 and you steal it from your mom's cabinet.
Yeah.
So I got those, and that summer I was healed, but I remember like continuing to use pain pills, and I was like going out to like the mall, and all of a sudden that social anxiety that I've had as like even younger was gone. I all of a sudden felt normal. I wasn't worried about
tell me about the social anxiety, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about social anxiety, are you talking panic attacks? Are you talking about increased heart rate? Are you talking about walking into a group of individuals being accepted? Like what exactly was social anxiety for you? So
for me, it was like a little bit of like panic attacks, as well as like that the racing thoughts of what other people are thinking about me, around me. Okay. So I remember I took pain pills, and I went to the mall, and I was like all of a sudden this confident person that I always wanted to be. Yeah. Like I didn't care. So when you were on pills, your anxiety went away. Yeah. And then when the pills would subside, right, that feeling would go away, did your anxiety go straight through the roof? Yeah, it went back up. So that's when I started realizing, like, for me, I was like, this is the answer. Yeah. This is the answer to all my problems. So school started my sophomore year. Walk through the fucking mall with the Superman shirt on. Yeah, I'm just like killing the game. I'm walking around. I'm like, this is it. You know, this is the answer to all my past problems. This is the answer to everything. I felt this like euphoria. Like, for me, opiates actually gave me energy. Yeah. So, so high school, sophomore year, I had a buddy that we did everything with. So we were popping pills in high school together. I remember he was just like passed out we had a common area. You walk in the big common area, you have tables there where people sit there and do homework. I remember he was just like passed out on these tables. And then I'm just like, how could you be passed out right now? I feel great.
Yeah.
I'm walking around.
And your buddy, where's he today?
I don't talk to, a lot of them actually don't talk to me because of my drug use.
Yeah.
How it escalated later.
Got it.
Yeah.
So keep taking me through your journey.
So
we're about 15 right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
15, 16.
Okay.
So yeah, as I continued using in school, and in my sophomore year, I remember like taking those pills in school. Like I had a lot of friends in high school, but that social anxiety, I was like, I don't care about what that girl thinks about me now.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of things that I didn't have prior to. And so it obviously continued. It got a little worse. I ended up, I'll fast forward to my...
But real quick, before you fast forward, tell me about school during this time, right?
School,
So if I'm a parent and I'm listening to this story, right?
Yeah.
And, I notice that maybe my child is, walking around with the Superman shirt on. He hasn't been doing that for years, right?
Yeah.
And I can recognize some things maybe that I'm dealing with in my family, right? Did you see the school decline, right? I mean, did you see your grades go down? Did you see your attendance drop? Did you see, just all you were about was acceptance and gaining acceptance of others at that point? Was that, was that
100%
kind of where you're at?
That was, so my brother has been like the person I've looked up to, and he was like this partier, right? So that's kind of what I was like, I'm going to be this partier. I'm going to be the fun guy in the room. And yeah, school dropped. My grades, I went from being like a straight A student, being and always in advanced math, to Logan's not doing so hot right now. And everything, I lived for after school. Yeah. So in high school, I never went home either. So like I'd go home like right before I had to go to bed. I'd spend all my time with my friends. Wow. So I was like pretty much gone. Yep. All the time. And
then with your mom and dad separated,
it's easy.
I suppose lie to this side, get whatever I want.
Oh yeah. I would tell my mom I'm with my dad, tell my dad I'm with my mom. And really Logan's actually in the park sleeping in his car because he's been out partying all week. Oh, no. So
wow.
So but yeah, it's hard to see. For me, it's like easy to see it. But the thing that my parents didn't do was, not that they didn't do it, but the thing that would have made it easier for me to talk to them at that point is to actually have an open dialogue. Yeah. So I didn't feel like I could have that open dialogue. Hey, I'm doing this.
Did your mom and dad talk feelings?
No.
So feelings didn't exist.
No. Really? My dad comes from a very men don't talk about feelings. Yeah. And later when I went to rehab, he's like, my son doesn't need rehab. He doesn't need therapy.
Was it just heightened anger for your dad?
Oh yeah.
Like, so just go, escalate to what the fuck, Logan?
Yeah. It was literally like, anger was the only emotion I knew how to show. Yeah. So as I'm going through my actual recovery, learning actual emotions like sadness, hurt, those emotions,
and talk your way through them.
Yes. And actually have to learn like, hey, what is this? Because I would go from happy to angry and not know it in between. Yeah. Because that's what I observed. Mm-hmm. I saw my brother do that. I saw my dad do that.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
As far as most individuals that deal with recovery from the first onset, right? We're not quite there yet in your journey. I get it. Yeah. But was there a blame for mom and dad? Was there a blame for brother? Was there a blame in your eye right away for your use and where you got?
Yeah, so I pointed a lot of fingers like, this is because of you, this is because of you. I tell later on I start using it with my brother. I'm like, if this wasn't for you, I wouldn't be at this point. Yeah. My parents didn't get divorced, I wouldn't be an addict, I wouldn't be doing this. If this didn't happen, I wouldn't be doing this. I would point my finger at everyone around me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a girlfriend that I dated from 16 to 20 during the majority of my using. It was all her fault. Like, I have to use to deal with your attitude type deal. And so, I blamed everyone around me. And really, for me, the biggest thing was realizing that it's no one's fault but my own. I made my choices, and to learn, like, regardless of what's happened to me, my resentments, things like that, I can see a part that I played in those things.
So before we get to the accountability piece, take me to the point where we're just about to dive off the diving board.
Yes.
Like where you know something's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know things are getting worse. What's going on?
So we're gonna fast forward. I get out of high school and I'm living on my own. I'm living with my brother at this point. And we're both
graduated school though, right?
Yeah. Okay, graduated. I tried to go to college. College got in the way of my using. I'm 18, 19 at this time. 19. I did actually move out of my parents' house as soon as I turned 18 in September. So I graduated high school living on my own.
Got it.
So so the pills escalated to heroin. And I went to go meet up with a guy, and the guy's like, hey, I don't have any pills, but I have this. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know anything. He's like, it's cheaper. You're not going to be going through withdrawal. I was like, awesome.
And that was the reaction. Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I was using I needed 150 milligrams of oxycodone to feel normal. Not to get high, not to anything. It was literally just to feel normal. Like my using escalated from being high to, at this point, I'm just maintaining a level of normalcy. I don't want to feel like I'm going through withdrawal. I don't want to feel like I'm like the withdrawals of opiates are horrible. They don't feel good. So I was literally using it at this point just to not feel that.
So if you take a step back and you think about this, you're the classic American story right now of opiates, of how it came from an injury, transition to pills, pills to heroin. But what I love that you acknowledged from early on is that this was probably heading in this direction no matter what. And I think some people just want to blame. And blame like pharma, blame big pharma, blame the pill companies, blame anybody but maybe the accountability within themselves. So sorry to interrupt, but it's important.
For me, it was important too, because if I blame other people, then I have no control over it. So once I take accountability, then all of a sudden I have this control over what I do and how I act, how I present myself. So at this point, I started using heroin, and my brother, I was kind of keeping it from him. And I found out my brother's actually using heroin.
He was using it too?
Yeah, so...
8 years apart.
8 years apart.
Using heroin at the same time.
At the exact same time.
And unbeknownst to you and unbeknownst to him.
Yeah, and that's how all our drug use happened. He didn't know I was using pills, then he found out I was using pills, then we ended up using pills together. My brother's actually a disabled vet, so he got a prescription of pills. Easily, actually, and he took advantage of it. He was getting large amounts of oxycodone, and together we were selling those to support our other habits. And yeah, so we're living together. Heroin comes into the mix. Fast forward, we both get kicked out of our apartment. My family looks at me, and I'm going to them like literally like crawling at this point. Like, hey, I don't have money. I don't have a job. I'm an active addict. But that word's never said in my family about either my brother or us. They never would talk about it, ever. They just knew something was wrong. It's like, I know something's wrong. I'm not going to say anything to you about it. And you know something's wrong. We're not going to talk about it. Everything's fine.
But you knew.
Oh, I knew. Yeah. I knew at this point, like, but prior to this, I was pretty much saying, like, I can stop. But then I tried to stop. I tried. I woke up at 9 o'clock. I was like, I'm not going to use today, just to kind of prove a point to my girlfriend at the time. I'm not an addict. By 12 o'clock, I was getting high again.
Really?
And I'd like kind of do it again. Like,
were you getting high at this point for physical dependence and withdrawal, or were you getting high because you actually enjoyed the feeling?
It was physical dependence and withdrawal.
Yeah.
When I switched to heroin, I started getting high a little bit again, and then it went quickly back to just basically maintenance at this point. Yep. So I got kicked out of my apartment. I went to my parents. They looked at me like, we're not going to help you. I had a key to their house.
So your mom and dad could pay for treatment.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad could afford that, no doubt about it. And they said, not on my watch.
Yeah, and at this point, I wasn't really asking for treatment. I was asking literally like, can you get me a place to live? Can I live with you? Can I do X, Y, Z? Can you help me? And they said, I'm not going to help you. What we're going to do is we're going to give you the opportunity to wash my car. And if you wash my car, I'll give you a sandwich and water.
Really?
Bottled water.
Was that your dad or your mom?
It was my mom.
Mom.
Yeah. So basically, things from here escalate further. Wasn't really living anywhere. I was going couch to couch. I was like kind of couch surfing. And at the point where I decided that I'm actually going to reach out for help, it was a day my buddy came home from treatment. That day I remember I was like in a bathroom of a gas station. And I was like, kind of like washing myself up. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, what am I doing? And I remember crying.
Probably could see the bags under your eyes, tears coming down your face.
Yeah.
So I remember, what the fuck?
I was like, how did it come to this? So, yeah, I met this buddy. I haven't seen him in years. And he was at a coffee shop. I was like, what am I going to do with this guy? He's sober. I was late getting there because I was copying from this old lady that was selling dope. Got it from her, got high, went there late. And I was like, what's up? And he was like, would you ever think about getting help? And he just started talking to me about it. And I was like, what? At this point, I had grand ideas of going to like Africa. Like, I'm going to denounce my citizenship. I'm going to go to South Africa. This is a good idea. I'll be sober there. So I was literally looking for something, and it was just like that, having that conversation with them that kind of like opened my eyes that it's possible. The next day, my parents randomly asked me to go to a family therapy session, and I went there, and I finally asked for help.
Did you open up?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. So
what was the reaction from mom and dad?
It was sadness and not knowing what
they're dealing with.
Yeah, not knowing what they're dealing with, not knowing the next steps, not knowing anything about rehabs or what the process is.
The blinders that mom and dad put on, I think sometimes for acknowledging their son or daughter's problems as a failure in their own parenting is, I think, a scary proposition for a lot of parents to go there, right?
Absolutely.
And once you actually go to the point that it's not my fault, and that my child is making their own decisions, choices, the brain disease that is addiction, the chronic disease that it is, I think it usually it melds into opportunity instead of disconnect between families.
Yeah, so I think my mom didn't want to recognize it, like you're saying, because I think she took it as it was her fault. She failed. But it wasn't her. It wasn't anything. It was just me. It was my choices. I had the power to make my own choices at this time. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't anyone's fault. It's just how things were happening. It's just a part of my life.
So you're at the therapy session.
Yeah. So we're there. I finally asked for help. My mom lets me stay at her house. Okay. That night. She's like, okay, you can come stay at our house.
Is that all you were after when you went there?
No, actually, I genuinely really wanted help. But I ended up using at her house. She came there. I slept super late in the day, and my mom was actually really worried about me. She was like panicking. And prior to this, I kind of skipped over, but I went to an outpatient program briefly. And then I only lasted like a month there. But my mom was panicking. She didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden the real time comes, like, Logan, we're taking you to detox. And I freak out. Like, you're not taking me to detox. I unleash the wrath of everything inside me. So eventually my dad comes in from where he lives and drove an hour. And he lives an hour and a half away. he gets there. I'm like, what are you doing here at my mom's house? And they convinced me that now is the time. And I was hanging out with some people that I didn't want to be around, and I didn't want them to know anything about me really at this point. And I was like, I got to get out of Oklahoma.
You're just hiding this whole person basically.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I got to get out of Oklahoma if I go to rehab. And also it's kind of a little ploy to give me some more time too. But they're all right, we're taking a detox. So I told my dad, I was like, the only way I'm going to go to detox, I was like, give me all the money in your wallet, and you're going to drive me somewhere, because they stole my keys while I was asleep to my car. So I took my dad to meet my drug dealer. I was like, you park here, I'm going to walk over there. And I got high in front of my dad, and it was the only time I've ever seen my dad cry. And we went to detox after that. Went through the whole intake process. This was actually Mother's Day, by the way.
Really?
This whole day is Mother's Day. So I'm in going through the whole detox process, and it's my first day in detox. I wake up, I'm at the cafeteria table, sitting there eating my food. I look out, and I'm like, that house, like this area looks kind of familiar, right? And I'm like looking around. I look there down the road. There's a gas station. Look down this road. I'm like, and I look there. I'm like, oh my God, it's my drug dealer's house.
No way.
Swear.
Right in the back, fucking hard.
Right out this window.
Wow.
And I'm like, God. And I kept thinking like, oh, I'm not like committed here. I can get out and leave. But something kept me staying. I don't know what it was. I think it was like really a fear of like more like disappointment to those around me. At this point, I really wasn't really doing recovery for me, but also at the same time I was. My girlfriend at the time left me. She had to go off to California to get away from me. She's like, I got to get completely away from you. I'm going all the way to California. So I had all these different factors that were kind of in my head keeping me in this detox. But then eventually I worked with a therapist there. My mom found this rehab.
You know, when you're talking about this detox and all these demons that you're fighting in your head at the same time, you can't help but to think about all the individuals that are in and out of residential treatment programs that are going through detox just like you did. And to think, you know, making it to treatment is like half the battle.
Oh, yeah.
Like getting through those moments, like we were just talking about, like, you know, having your dad cry in front of you, Mother's Day, right? Girlfriend leaving to California, all that shit you're thinking about. It's probably for the first time without drugs in a long time. Yeah. Because, you know, what was the length of time that you'd usually go besides use, without use? Hours. And it was a lot happening, like you all
said,
at once.
All these things happening at once. I'm a little like hazy because I'm just like feeling all these things, and it wasn't necessarily medically assisted treatment or detox or anything, and it was just it was a lot. I remember I was just on the couch. There's like this plastic couch. I'm just like curled up with they didn't have blankets at this place. In their like group room area, but they had this couch, and I pulled the cushion of the couch to make a little blanket, and I like curled up, and I just like was trying just to get through it. I eventually get out of there, and I met some really amazing people there, like both people that are going through detox as well as like the staff there. I was like, God, these are really amazing people. They had like a tech there, and I was like, God, I would like to do that someday. You know. And I eventually go off to Arizona to go to treatment, and I went to a 6-month-long program. I knew they had a 6-month sober living afterwards, and I was like, I'm not going to make it 6 months. I'm just going to do 3 months. I get there.
You already had your mind made up.
Had my mind made up. I'm only doing 3 months. It's over. I'm going to be good after 3 months, but I'm going to get out of Oklahoma. It's going to be fine. So I get there, and all the staff were in recovery. All the staff were alumni, and so they would really talk to me about like their experience there. And then I had a therapist that was also in recovery. And so it was like kind of all these perfect things for me, because this place created a family that I didn't necessarily have at home. It was very like it was amazing because they cared about you. And someone explained it this way, that one of my friends, he's like, it's like, say you're sitting with your friend and your buddy's got a little boogie on his nose.
Yeah, they're going to tell you it's there.
They're going to tell you it's there.
Yeah.
He goes, a bad person's going to not tell you it's there. So they would call me out, and they would, in like a caring way, like, hey, I noticed you're doing this. Like, I'm kind of concerned. And so going through that program, going to my sober living, and then even after my sober living, I had friends, a community of people that would literally call me out when I'm BSing. I still have a buddy now. If he calls me and I say something, he's like, come on.
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit. How are you really doing?
Yeah.
And so we have this great community. And I mean, I was there with 13 guys. And there's 8 of us, 9 of us still sober. Like, some have relapsed and then come back into recovery. And it's been we have like a very tight-knit group. And it's that was really what I needed, was that community.
Yep.
That community. This treatment was a very 12-step focused treatment, and the biggest thing for me with the 12 steps was really that community, and then also kind of having something or someone that would hold me accountable, because I didn't have that in the past. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about recovery is people recover in so many different ways.
For sure. And
it's like finding out what works for you. And I really lucked out. Like, what I needed was there. Like, I reached out for help, and it was there. And yeah, so I ended up working there too. And that was a really cool thing for me, because I would, when I was a client there, it was really the staff, the techs that really helped me. It was like, one of the techs there, his name was Justin, and he was a past client, and he would like just kind of joke about things, and kind of like a way that, and like talk really seriously about things, that in a way it like resonated more with me than like a very dry conversation about recovery. He would just kind of like make jokes and like be super sincere, and come from a place of like experience, and it like really it really hit me at home. So like these people, these staff, I really looked up to them. These staff members became my brothers, basically.
Got it.
And so my brother also is going through
and still connected with them today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really crazy community, because it was like, now I graduated, now I'm part of the alumni. I can hang out with all the alumni. And we were all close. Like a lot of us have moved away, but we still all talk to each other. Like, we kind of, it's like an unsaid role. Like, we'll always check in on one another, like once a month.
And this group's about how many, did you say 8?
Yeah. So of my group that went through, there's 9 of us, and the whole group, there's like 13, 15 of us that are super close. Yeah. And a lot of us, I mean, we have moved off, but we all keep in contact. It's kind of like, I heard one of the guys I went to treatment with, he relapsed and he came back and he graduated the program. So I called him and I did like a little prank call. I was like, hey, you pretending to be a debt collector, because he had a new number and didn't have my phone number saved. So, but yeah, no, we all keep in contact. We all keep each other updated. Like, hey, how's so-and-so doing? And it's like, oh, I should call them. Give me their number. But yeah, recovery is like a continuous thing too. I think I had this idea of like, I graduate, it's over. And then once I started going through the process, I'm like, graduating is the first step. It's like the first step into like this lifelong thing. Because I was so concerned about the 6 months. I was like, it's too long. But someone put it in perspective. He's like, the average life expectancy is like 78 years old. What is 6 months of your life of 78 years?
1/150th.
He's like, if you can set up the last 50 years of your life to be not feeling like shit
Mm-hmm.
and to be happy and to be a good person again, wouldn't you do that? I was like, yeah. So
are you one question I've heard a lot is fortunate or unfortunate, right? Do you think you're fortunate to go through this process or unfortunate?
very fortunate.
Very fortunate. Tell me why.
So like I look at my recovery as like a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was shit.
Yeah.
It sucked, but it's an amazing gift at the same time, because now I can relate and have conversations and be understanding to people, and have like compassion for things that if I didn't go through the process, I might not have. To like understand like what that person's going through is a very powerful, amazing thing. So for me, I think it's an amazing gift to kind of go through this whole process.
Yeah.
It's really given me more than it's taken away.
Got it. As far as right now, there's obviously a pandemic in our country as well as an epidemic, right? And the epidemic is still alive and well. Have you ever overdosed before?
Yeah.
You have overdosed before. Did you have to use Narcan?
No, I was taken to the hospital.
You were taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think ultimately allowed you not to be a part of those statistics of the 70,000+ individuals in our country that are dying every year? If you had to point it at one thing.
Honestly, just luck.
Luck.
Yeah. I've had friends I've had multiple friends. I had a friend just a month ago OD and die.
From back home in Tulsa?
Yeah.
Did you use with him back in the day?
Yeah. So my brother kept in contact with him, and we were trying to get him into treatment, and he OD'd and died. And it happens a lot. Like going through recovery, that's like one of the, I'd say like the sucky things about it. It's like you're now sober, you're now doing all these things, and you look back and you just want to help everyone.
Yeah.
And I think it's just honestly luck.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm still here.
Next question I have for you is, you look at it and you'd say, there's a lot of Logans right now, right? 15 to 25, hell, 30, that are using pills, heroin, etc. What advice would you have for mom and dads, friends, relatives, loved ones, brothers, sisters, where they have a Logan in their family that's using, that needs help, and it's a hard concept.
Yeah.
To really find a way and a means to do so, especially when education is so missed by this, right? What advice would you give to those family, friends, relatives, or otherwise for someone that's struggling, that was in your shoes, that's in your shoes currently, that you've been in? What would you tell them? I
think the number one thing is keep an open line of communication.
Yep.
So I'll use an example. My brother, I'm 2 years sober at this point in my life, and my brother's using, and I'm trying so hard. I want to be like, just come down as the second coming and save him and just make everything better. I can't. So the only thing I could do, honestly, at this point is keep an open line of communication. Tell him like, hey, I love you, but right now I can't have too much interaction. Like for me, this is what I had to do. I'd be like, I can't have too much interaction with you. I can't be too involved, but just know I am here if you need help. And just to leave that line of communication. I'm like, I'm here if you need help. And come from a very compassionate standpoint, not a judgmental one. Because like if you come from a compassionate standpoint as opposed to judgment, you have the opportunity to actually help.
Well, wouldn't one argue that there might be a lot of demise through that process? Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, if you're basically saying, like, I'm here for you, and let me know when you need it. Yeah. Somebody might just continue and continue and continue down that path.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it didn't matter what anyone said to me when I was using. If I wasn't ready, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
and it took going through my trials and tribulations and all this shit to come to like, I need help someone, and I have to beg for help at this point. It's hard because I think communication is like such a big piece of like keeping that line of communication open, because I didn't have that, and that was the one thing that like I look back, I'm like, oh, I wish I had that, but ended up being the best thing for me.
So another question I have for you is, you had brought up anxiety, right? And anxiety, social anxiety, and or panic attacks, etc. Do you still have those today?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
all these things that I had before using it was, so going through recovery, being sober now, I'm feeling all this stuff again, right? My first year, 6 months, 3 months, feeling all these things I haven't felt in a really long time. And for me, it was more like, okay, all right, I had a therapist that was really big in meditation, and we'd work on breathing techniques. We'd work on all these things, like just trying to find a new way of dealing with it. Because like for me, my addiction is, the drugs were just a symptom of my issues. I have other stuff there, and I was using the drugs as a medicine, as a whatever it is. So I think for me, the big thing was learning like breathing techniques, meditation, and really just like telling myself, like, I can learn new ways, being open to new ways.
What's the best self-help, book, guide, anything that you've read?
So actually, I used to listen to a podcast called Yogi in a Lamborghini.
Okay.
He talks about a lot of really good breathing techniques there that like really helped me. And honestly, my community of people, like it was kind of crazy because we're all like these, like all my friends back in Arizona, we're all these like, we all have tattoos. We're all just like come from rough stories. Like we'd like tell our like kind of like horror stories to each other. And it's like, wow, that's scary. You lived through that. But then we're like talking about like, how do you feel today?
Yeah.
It's
real.
I have a buddy who's just got tattoos all up and down his neck, and he's just like, we're like, how do you feel? He goes, are you anxious? And it's like, this is so weird that we're actually having like, it's kind of cool because I didn't grow up with that. Like, men don't talk about their feelings. So now we're like these recovering addicts, and we're talking about our feelings with each other. Like, but yeah, no, learning from them too, of like other people like that have come before me in recovery, or even people that are early in recovery, like learning different things from them. I just try to pick up on what other people are doing to see and try it. And if it works for me, then I take it and run. If it doesn't, then I just like drop it.
Got it. Recovery today is what for you?
Recovery for me today is honestly, like, for me, it's everything. I think about recovery on a daily basis because it's given me so much. Like, I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't sober, if I wasn't in recovery. It's given me so much. It's given me so much perspective on life. I wouldn't be as mature as I am. Well, I'm not going to say that I'm mature, but I feel like I'm pretty
kind of
mature. I wouldn't be as mature or if it wasn't for recovery. So really, it's everything. It's given me everything. And for me, I really like giving it back. And so it's literally everything.
Are you a father?
Yeah.
Boy, girl?
Girl.
How old?
She's 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess you could say popular thought is that addiction does run in the genes, right?
Yeah.
What would you do different? What would you do different than your mom and dad?
Yeah, so that's really when I say like communication is, I've thought about that because her mom is also in recovery too. So we both this is a very real thing for us.
Very real.
We both are in recovery, and we think about these things. So like communication, like really communication, having that open line, having open dialogue, not having not having such like I always go back to judgment, but having a judgment on what others do, like just accepting someone for who they are and having an open line of communication, even from like, I look at it as a parent, like I want to be honest with my daughter about like my past.
About everything.
Like, this is what I did. This is what I experienced. I don't want you to experience the same things, but if anything ever happens, I want you to know that it's safe to come to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
And maybe, that's learning from, your family maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you take a look in the back, like, did you have that talk with your mom and dad? Sex?
No.
Addiction?
No.
Feelings?
No.
Nothing.
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 Super Southern family. We're going to pretend like it's not there.
It's not there. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's all good. I
Just
did
brush it under the rug.
Yeah.
Next day.
The only thing I knew about addiction was I had a cousin that he was an addict and he committed suicide. And my brother was taken to his funeral as a lesson of not to use drugs.
A lesson.
Yeah, it was. He committed suicide and it was an open casket, and he shot himself. So it was that was a lesson.
Wow.
So it was very traumatizing.
Shame based.
Yeah.
Very shame based.
Yeah. So I think approaching it from more of a positive, like not a positive, but more of a realistic. Like, this is what's happened to me. This is why I don't do X, Y, Z. This is what I've experienced. And just having honest, caring conversation.
There's, again, a lot of different schools of thought about use today versus use in the past, etc. Is alcohol something that you think you could ever, have enter your system?
No, and for me, alcohol wasn't a huge part of my use. The reason I don't drink is, for me, I always, so cocaine was a big one for me. Whenever I drink, I'd use Coke. Whenever next day I'm feeling like shit from Coke, so I'm just going to use some pain pills or Xanax, whatever it is, and it's all going to lead back for me, in my mind, to heroin. And that's for me. So I just don't want to put myself in a situation where it could go back to where it was, because where it was is not where I want to go back to. And
do you ever live in that what if moment?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I live in the
Is
what.
it keeping you up at night sometimes?
No, not really. No. I just think of it like a way to just think like, this is still a real thing for me. This is everything for me right now. My life is great.
Yeah.
Everything I experienced could happen again.
Yeah.
I have to keep that on my mind so that I don't do things for me that could put me in a situation where I feel like I could be putting myself at risk, And remember, like, I continue to have to grow. I feel like if I'm not growing one way or another, then I am taking steps backwards.
Yeah.
So like continuing to grow, spiritually, personally, professionally, all these things, then I'm taking a step back. So growing is huge for me. So like making sure that like I'm continuing to move forward. If I'm not moving forward, then I'm taking steps back.
Got it.
So
as far as motivation and goals are concerned, right? How old are you now?
25.
25 right now. Okay, heading into, let's call it 30.
Yeah.
Right. What major goals, or what are you motivated by now?
What am I motivated by now? Honestly, like my biggest motivation is really my past. Like this is what I lived through. I need to do better to show other people that they can live through this too and do better. So my biggest motivation is really my past, and showing people that like no matter where you are today, you can do better. You can have a life where you're happy, you're growing professionally, personally, spiritually, all these things, and things get better. So like for me, my biggest motivation is really, I guess you could say other people, but other people that are struggling.
Yeah. So let's say, for instance, you got 100 individuals, right?
Yeah.
They're right in front of you right now.
Yeah.
Okay? 100 people are standing there. And you have the opportunity to send a message or to talk, briefly. What do you want them to hear?
That for people that are struggling with addiction, the one thing I want them to know is they're not alone. They're not alone. because that was the one thing that I always felt, is I'm alone. When you're using, your friends are your drug dealers, and they're not really your friends.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if you think they're your friends, I'm sorry.
Yeah, mistaken.
You're a huge mistake. So I think the biggest thing is, like, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are going through the same thing, and other people have gotten out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's this old story about something about digging out of a hole. I can't remember it, but I just think about, like, you can bring someone out. I've gotten out of this hole.
Somebody else.
Here's the route I took.
Mm-hmm.
Or here's a route. I think the biggest thing that is a mistake that a lot of treatment centers make, that I'm really glad we don't make, is like, hey, this is the only way you can get sober.
Mm-hmm.
I think here, I love that we give options. Like, here's 12 steps, here's MAT, here's therapy, here's all these different routes that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Which one works for you? Because people get into recovery in so many different ways.
No, definitely.
So I think that's one of the most amazing things, is like, here's your routes to get out of this hole.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's gonna work for you? Maybe you're not tall. Maybe you can't reach that that handhold. You know.
So one other thing that I know a lot of individuals probably have a difficult time with is, how would I be able to live this life and still have quote unquote fun, right? Like, I mean, fun has been getting high, fun has been use, fun has been this, fun has been this. Transitioning to a life of recovery, like, going to a baseball game sober, or going to a hike or a park or something sober, rather than use all the time. Mm-hmm. When did it click for you that could be fun?
So I was really lucky. It was my first week. So I went to an outdoor therapy rehab. Mm-hmm. So we went to do outdoor things. So we went to Moab, Utah my first week, and we went paddleboarding on the Colorado. It was so cold. I'm still in withdrawal. Yeah. Like, in the moment, I was a little miserable, but looking back, I'm like, how could I be miserable on the Colorado paddleboarding? You know? But one of the owner used to say, I have to make treatment more fun than crack. I think about that as like, oh, interesting. But
are you genuinely happy today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, it was like getting outside of my comfort zone. I learned things that I like that I didn't know I liked. Mm-hmm. Like going outside, going on a hike, like enjoying that, paddleboarding. I love paddleboarding. And snowboarding. I picked up snowboarding again after years of not doing it. Mm-hmm. In Arizona, Flagstaff, we had Snow Bowl Mountain. I got a season pass. Yeah. Like right at in my sober living, I was like, I'm getting a season pass. It was like $120 for like a whole season. Yeah. It was awesome. And yeah, I really started exploring new things that I liked, or re-exploring things from when I was younger that I loved, that I forgot I loved, and I learned that I loved again. Yeah, and getting outside of my comfort zone was a huge thing to learn what I actually like. Mm-hmm.
No, that's great, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming in here and sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to let us know before we go today?
No, I think that was it. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time and opening up and being honest. And again, there's mental health problems in our country. There's a epidemic in our country. There's a pandemic in our country. Yeah. The alcohol is spiking through the roof at over 600% liquor store sales. Yeah. Our overdose rate is the highest it's ever been, legitimately ever been. And we are going to come out of this pandemic, unfortunately, with what I believe is going to be the largest addiction crisis that this country has ever seen. Mm-hmm. And so, again, back to those families, back to those individuals dealing with mental health, addiction crisis, etc. What advice would you give them in this moment today that you're 20, okay? Mm-hmm. You're 20. And this epidemic and this pandemic is going on in the throes of your addiction, right? You're isolating. Your mental health is fucking skyrocketing off the rails right now, right? Anxiety, fear, you name it. Plus, you're just trying to find your next hit.
Yeah.
Your next call to dope, right? What would you recommend? What would you suggest for individuals?
Reach out for help. There's help out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's amazing places all over this country that are there to help. And I think really looking for them and having a resource, trying to find them. I think that's right now is like the biggest thing, like nationally, is trying to find resources.
Mm-hmm.
But they are out there. It's just you gotta look for them. Like there's help out there.
Yep. Cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Podcast number 1, baby.
Podcast
number 1.
All right.
Thank you.